pouting on my senses.
What's up guys, Ash back here again, here to bring you another video on my gaming channel this time. This is Storytime with Ashley Hogg, Episode 2, Paranormal Vengeance, Part 2. So without further ado, we're going to get into this. So welcome back to Paranormal Vengeance, and welcome back to After Dark Stories. Welcome to Storytime with Ashley Hogg, Episode 2, Paranormal Vengeance, Part 2. So enjoy. Chris says, I'm talking involuntary manslaughter. Chris says, reckless endangerment. Chris says, all big charges that would have followed us forever. Chris says, we might have to do time for this. Fred says, it's all true. Chris says, is that what you would have wanted? Chris says, us two behind bars. Candy says, no, but... Fred says, technically it was Chris in the driver's seat. Fred says, not me. Fred says, Chris was drinking at the bar at the Grand Canyon. Fred says, I told him not to. Chris says, it was only 2 drinks max. Chris says, I was perfectly fine to drive. Chris says, don't you dare blame this on me. Candy says, so what happened? Chris says, we got some trash bags from the trunk. Chris says, and put his body in them. Fred says, it was so hard to carry him. Chris says, we got him to the edge of the road. Chris says, and dumped him. Fred says it was like 30-foot drop at least. Candy says, wow, I'm speechless. Candy says, if he wasn't dead, he would have been after that fall. Chris says, after that, we got rid of the evidence. Chris says, we cleaned up the mess on the car with some towels I had in the back. Fred says, yeah, we had to do it before all the blood got dry. Candy says, just think about just thinking about it, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Candy says, blood makes me queasy. Chris says, yeah, anyways? Chris says, we checked to make sure the coast was clear. Got back in the car and just drove off. Excuse me. Fred says, yeah, at first the car starting. Fred says, but we finally got it to work and got the hell out of there. Chris says, it was about a 2-hour drive back to the Airbnb. Chris says, neither of us said a word to each other the entire time. Chris says, it was just so quiet. Candy says, are you guys okay? Chris says, yeah, just a little bit shaken up, that's all. Candy says, so where are you guys now? Candy says, back in the cabin. Oh, yeah, that is right, that is Candy. Candy says, back in the cabin? Question mark. Chris says, yeah, once we got back, we ate a little dinner and tried to figure out if we should tell you what happened. Candy says, well, while I don't think you should have left the man there. Chris says, there was literally nothing we could have done. Chris says, we were in the middle of nowhere. Chris says, with no way to call for help. Candy says, yeah, but I still feel like that wasn't the right thing to do. Candy's my man here, or my girl, whatever you like to call it. Candy is the man. She knows what's right. Chris says, everything will be okay. Chris says, I think Fred and I will eventually forget any of this even happened. Chris said it will be like a distant memory. Candy says, yeah, sure. Fred says, I'm definitely not watching any scary movies tonight. Chris says, I wouldn't watch any with Fred anyways. Chris says, the cabin does somehow feel a little freakier. Chris says, after everything that just happened. Fred says, yeah, Candy, I just wish we didn't have a cabin by ourselves. Chris says, it was the only one available on such short notice. Chris says, anyways, Fred and I agreed to rewash the car in the morning. Candy says, Chris, can I talk to you alone? Chris says, sure, no problem. Fred exits the group chat. Chris says, what's wrong? Now I'm gonna watch these 2 ads and continue the story because I want to try and finish this story. So I'm gonna watch these 2 ads. Alright guys, so welcome to chapter 3 of this. This is... Candy said, nothing. Look, Chris said, look, it was an accident. Chris said, we can't blame ourselves for what we did. Chris said, it doesn't solve anything. Candy says, I know. Candy says, why do you keep telling me this? Chris says, I need to confess something to you. Candy says, what is it? Chris says, it was a summer before college. Chris says, me and 3 friends were driving around in a night unlike this. Candy says, was one of them Fred? Candy says, no, he wasn't there. Chris says, anyways, we got distracted. We accidentally hit someone. Chris says, we didn't want to risk our future. Chris says, so we did the same thing. Chris says, we got rid of the body. And we swore to secrecy. Now this part right here, this part is definitely from I Know What You Did Last Summer, the film. It's all in here. They ran over Ben Wallace, and they swore to secrecy to keep it a secret. So yeah, Chris says, not telling a single soul what we did. Kenny says, so you have done this before? Kenny says, why is this the first time I'm hearing about it? Chris says, like I said, we swore to secrecy. Sorry about that, my chair just made a noise. Chris says, there's a lot you don't know about my past. Kenny says, well, what else is there? Chris says, the accident was bad. Chris says, it was our fault and we knew it. Chris says, if we ever confessed, we would likely have gone to jail. Chris says, we were 18 already. Chris says, it would have really hurt us. Chris says, but anyways, my friend, the one who was driving, Chris says he felt so guilty that he eventually shot himself with his father's shotgun. Candy says, Jesus! Chris says, yeah, his parents were devastated. Chris says he had such a bright future too. Candy says, what happened to the other friends? Chris says, well, for a time we really wanted to confess, come clean and tell the police. And by that point we felt we were responsible for 2 deaths instead of 1. Chris says, it was awful. Let's continue the story. Candy says, so what happened? Chris says, nothing really. Chris says, we decided against it. Chris says, we swore we would keep it a secret until death. Chris says, we eventually drifted apart. Chris says, I haven't seen him in years. Candy says, well, thank you for telling me. Chris says, yeah. Chris says, I'm telling you because I trust you. Because I trust you. I trust me. Don't tell anyone. Chris says, or else. Winky face. Candy says, Chris, stop. Chris says, there was one other thing though. Chris says, it was years ago, my memory could be fuzzy. Candy says, what? Chris says, the man we hit back years ago. Chris says, also had a hook for a hand. Candy says, really? What are the chances? Chris says, yeah, I felt really creeped out earlier. Candy says, do you think it was maybe the same guy? Chris says, I mean, there's no possible way. It was probably just some kind of coincidence. Chris says, right? Candy says, probably. Candy says, just a weird coincidence, that's all. Chris says, well, anyways. Chris says, I'm going to head to bed. Chris says, Fred and I have a long drive ahead of us tomorrow. Candy says, okay, good night. 2 hours later. Chris says, what was that? Candy says, what? Chris says, sounds like knocking on the door. Chris says, let me check the window. Chris says, it's the police! Candy says, oh God! Chris says, it's okay, I just told Fred to let me do all the talking. Sorry if I'm shouting, guys. I'm trying to set the ambience and like shouting loud because they're raising their voices. They've got question marks and exclamation marks. So 40 minutes later, Candy says, so what happened? Candy says, you two were talking for a while. Chris says, the cop was just answering reports of a missing person. Chris says, middle-aged man went missing. Candy says, do you think it was the guy who you had hit earlier? Chris says, I don't know, baby. Chris says, it could have been anybody. Candy says, if it was him, and he did have a family, I would feel awful, Candy said. Candy said, what did you tell him? Chris said, I told him Fred and I never left the cabin the entire day. Lies! Lies! Candy says, and what happened? Chris says, the cop asked if our car's headlights were on the entire day. Candy says, how could you forget to turn that off? Chris says, yeah, it was a mistake. Chris says, that's probably why he came to check on us in the first place. Sorry, my mouth is starting to hurt. Candy says, what else? Chris says, nothing else happened. Chris says, we're all cleaned up. No dirt or blood. Chris says, we don't exactly look like prime suspects. Candy sighs. Chris says we're heading back to the state in the morning. Chris says we'll be 500 miles east of here. Chris says away from all of this. So it'll all be fine. Chris says we'll get through this. Candy says if I were in your position, I don't think being even halfway around the world would get rid of the guilt. And shall I continue the story? I'm running for about 9 to 10 minutes now. So let's continue the story. Let's make this a very long episode. Now I'm going to cut the advertisements out, so I'm going to stay silent. Alright guys, we're back. I just had to do a short cut there. Next part, here we go. Chris says it's been a long night. Chris says I'm just going to get back to sleep, okay? Kay says okay, yeah. Kay says I love you. Chris says night, babe. 2 hours and 55 minutes later. Chris says not again. Kay says what is it now? Someone's banging on the door. Candy says, what? Chris says, I think it's the cops again. Candy says, why would they be banging on the door this late at night? Chris says, I don't know. Chris says, but I'm going to find out. Chris says, I just looked through the window. It's not the cops, Chris said. Candy says, then who is it? This is going to sound weird. I mean, it's a guy we read over. Candy says, what? Chris says, yeah, he's using his hooked hand to bang on the door. Chris says, on the way he's doing it. It just sounds so mechanical. Chris says, I mean, listen to the banging. Oh, I can't even play the sound, but I'm doing a sound here. Let's continue. Chris says, every single bang is the exact same pounding. Kenny says, what are you guys going to do? Chris says, I don't know, this is really weird. Chris says, there's no possible way it could be the same guy. Chris says, no way he could have survived that huge fall. Kenny says, well, whatever it is outside your door. Chris says, I told Fred to go and make sure all the windows and doors are locked. Fred re-enters the group chat. Chris says, we're in separate rooms right now. Fred says, we can't escape, he's right there, our car is outside. Chris says, best we can do is stay here and pretend like no one is home. Chris says, hey, go turn on the TV, I want to know what the security cameras just show. Chris says, Jesus! Chris says, turn it down, turn it down. Fred says, he heard us. Fred says, he knows we're in here. Chris says, his pounding is getting louder and louder. Kenny says, what are you guys going to do? Kenny says, you can't just stay there. Chris says, you hear that, Fred? Chris says, it's quiet. Chris says, I think he's gone now. Fred says, we can't just stay here. Fred says, I don't feel safe. Chris says, what else can we do? Chris says, run to the car and start driving. Chris says, it's the middle of the night. Fred says, did you hear that? I think it's coming from the basement. Chris says, okay, I have an idea. Chris says, you go run out to the car first. I'll be right there. Fred says, what are you going to do? Chris says, I have a knife here in my suitcase. Get the knives out. Chris says, I need to finish this once and for all. Chris says, or he'll keep following us. Kenny says, Chris, don't. Kenny says, both of you need to get out there together. Chris says, just go away in the car, Fred. Chris says, I'll meet you there. I wonder what's going to happen. I really wonder what's going to happen. Kenny says, I'm hearing screams right now. Kenny says, I'm so scared. Fred says, I think Chris is hurt. Fred says, Jesus. Fred says, he's coming, whatever he is. Fred says, he's coming. Fred says, I have to get out of here. Kenny says, Fred, don't leave without Chris. Fred says, I can't wait any longer, I'm sorry. Fred says, I can see him in the rear view mirror. Fred says, he's walking towards me. Sorry, I can't talk. I need to drive out of here. I'm sorry about Chris, I can't save him. If I don't make it, tell my parents I love them. Kenny says, Fred, wait! Next day, two unidentified men, mid-20s, are found dead, hands missing. And that is the end of the story. That was magnificent. Now this video is going to be like probably like over 10 minutes or 14 to 15 minutes. But anyway, guys, that is it. As you can see, there's the app there. It says enjoy after dark. Rate it. No, I don't want to rate it. Not now. And that is it for Storytime with Ashley Hogg, episode 2, part 2 of this particular story. Now I'm going to do more stories in the future, so look out for that. I'm going to be doing more horror. I've also got more apps as well for stories like yarn and stuff. So without further ado, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and share, and I'll see you next time with another video. Thank you so much. Cheers. Goodbye.